Welcome, sleepy traveler. You've arrived at a quiet space made just for you. My name is Valarie, and I am here to guide you gently into rest, to help ease your mind, soften your body, and drift you toward a peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. Whether your day was long or your thoughts feel a little too loud tonight, let this be your permission to slow down, to breathe, and to simply be. There's nothing more to do now. Just allow my voice to be your guide as we begin this gentle journey toward deep, nourishing rest. If you're new here, subscribe for sleep content like this, and like this video if you find it enjoyable. So find a position that feels most natural to you. Perhaps lying on your back, arms resting softly at your sides. Or maybe curled up on your side with a blanket wrapped gently around you. There's no right or wrong way to be. Just comfort. Just presence. Let's begin with a few moments of awareness. Notice how your body feels right now. Don't judge or change anything, simply observe. The weight of your body against the bed. The softness of your pillow beneath your head. The coolness or warmth of the air around you. Your breath moving in and out naturally, effortlessly. And now let's take a deep breath together. In through the nose, slow and full. And out through the mouth, long and gentle. Again, a deep, nurturing inhale. And a soft, releasing exhale. One more time, inhale peace. And exhale anything you no longer need. Beautiful. Now let your breathing return to its natural rhythm. There's nothing to force. Your body knows how to relax. Your breath knows how to lead you home. As your body begins to settle, let your awareness drift to your feet. Feel them relaxing, letting go of tension, the muscles loosening, the bones sinking gently into the mattress. Safe. At ease. Now bring your awareness up to your legs. Your calves, your knees, your thighs. Imagine a soft wave of comfort moving through them. unwinding any tightness, releasing any effort. Just calm. Just rest. Feel this wave continue up to your hips and lower back. All the places that carry your weight. Let them melt into stillness. There's nothing you need to hold up anymore. The earth has you. The bed has you. And you are safe to let go. Now your belly and chest. Soften with every breath. Let the gentle rise and fall of your chest lull you. Like waves on a shore. Like the rhythm of a lullaby. Each breath a whisper of comfort. Feel your shoulders soften. Allow them to drop. They've held enough today. They can rest now. Feel the arms release. The wrists loosen. The hands open gently. You are surrendering to peace. Let this calm move up into your neck and jaw. Let your tongue relax. Your teeth unclench. Let your face grow soft and smooth. There is nothing to express now. Just rest. Just gentle stillness. And finally, your mind. Let your thoughts slow. Like snowflakes falling in a quiet forest. They don't need to disappear. They just don't need your attention right now. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to drift. Let a sense of peace wrap gently around you now. Like a soft blanket. Like the hush of twilight. Like the hand of something kind holding you through the dark. You are doing such a beautiful job. You've made it through another day. And now you're giving yourself the gift of rest. A sacred gift. One that your body and spirit deeply deserve. Tonight, know this. There is nothing you need to fix. Nothing you need to change. Be as you are, and let the quiet carry you. And if this meditation brings you even a little more peace, I invite you to gently like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. It's a quiet way to say thank you, and it helps me continue creating these moments for you. Before we move into deeper rest, here's a gentle question to carry you into sleep. What does peace feel like in your body tonight? Feel free to share your answer in the comments if you'd like. I'd love to hear what your peace feels like. Now stay with your breath. Feel the softness in your limbs, the hush in your chest, the quiet space between each thought, and allow yourself to drift, to float, to simply be. Let this night cradle you. Let sleep take its gentle hold. And know that you are enough. You are loved. And you are safe. Now close your eyes. Let go. And rest. With every breath, your body becomes heavier and calmer. And now let me tell you a story. One that lives just beyond the edge of dreams. In a land where time softens and the stars seem close enough to touch. This is the story of a traveler named Leora. Leora lived in a small cottage at the edge of a quiet forest. Her days were gentle and slow, gathering herbs, tending to animals, and watching the sun rise over the hills. But each night, as the stars began to glow, Leora would walk to the edge of the forest and look up. She would wonder what lay beyond the trees, beyond the soft rustle of leaves, beyond even the night sky. One evening, when the moon was low and full, a soft path appeared through the trees. A path Leora had never seen before. It shimmered faintly, like it had been waiting for her all along. She stepped forward, curiosity blooming quietly in her chest. The forest was still, but not silent. Owls hooted softly in the distance. Crickets sang in steady rhythm. Each step she took felt lighter than the last, like the earth itself was holding her with care. The path led her deeper into the woods. Trees arched above her like cathedral walls, their leaves glowing faintly in the moonlight. A gentle breeze brushed her cheeks, whispering secrets of old. And then she came to a clearing. In the center was a still, round pond. Its surface mirrored the stars above, twinkling as if the sky had poured itself into the water. Leora knelt beside it and gazed in. She could see not just her reflection, but something else. A soft glow beneath the water's surface. She reached out, fingertips barely touching the cool water. The pond shimmered, and the air around her began to change. It felt lighter, sweeter. The trees swayed in a rhythm that matched her breath. And before her, where the pond had been, was now a bridge of starlight. A soft arching path, leading not forward but upward into the sky. With calm certainty, Leora stepped onto the bridge. Each step brought her closer to the stars. She could see constellations swirling gently beside her. Orion bowed. Cassiopeia smiled. The stars did not burn. They pulsed gently like lanterns made of lullabies. Soft and kind. The bridge led her to a quiet grove in the sky. A floating island surrounded by constellations. There, on the grass, was a great silver tree. Its leaves tinkled like wind chimes in the starlit breeze. And beneath it lay a bed of moss, thick and soft. Leora lay down there, cradled by the sky. The silver leaves whispered stories above her. Stories of planets being born, of ancient winds, of galaxies spinning like dancers. The sky held her gently, like a mother would hold a sleeping child. There was no fear here. No worry. Only peace. Only deep, timeless rest. Leora closed her eyes. And the stars began to hum. A lullaby older than time. One that said, "You are home. You are loved. You are safe." She drifted in that lullaby, floating, resting in the arms of the cosmos. And as she slept, the stars around her pulsed in rhythm with her breath. In in You too are on that bridge now. You too have found your way to the quiet grove beyond the stars. Let the silver tree shelter you. Let the hum of the stars lull you. Let sleep rise like a soft tide, cradling your thoughts, your breath, your heart. There is nothing to hold on to now. No weight to carry. Just you and the sky and the deep river of rest flowing gently beneath you. Let your limbs grow heavier now. Sink into the bed beneath you as if it were made of moss and moonlight. Let your thoughts slow. Soft as petals. Light as feathers. Let go. Let go. Let go. You are safe. You are deeply loved. And you are ready now. Ready to drift. Ready to dream. Ready to sleep. Good night, dear traveler. May your dreams be soft and your rest be deep. And now our story begins. You are standing at the edge of a quiet forest path. The air is cool, the sky painted in soft twilight. Somewhere behind the trees, the last golden rays of the sun are slipping away. You feel the hush of evening settle over everything. The birds have gone quiet, and the leaves stir with a gentle breeze. The scent of pine and moss drifts toward you, grounding and earthy. You begin to walk slowly barefoot. The ground is soft beneath your feet. Each step feels like a gentle invitation to let go. You follow a narrow trail that curves gently through the woods. There's a stillness here, like the forest itself is listening. You hear the faint trickle of water in the distance. A lake, perhaps. You keep walking, drawn by the sound. The trees begin to thin. Moonlight filters through the branches, soft and silver. And then the path opens. You step out of the forest and find yourself standing at the edge of a quiet, moonlit lake. The surface is perfectly still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Stars scatter across it, twinkling in the water just as they do above. But one thing draws your eye more than anything else. A lantern, softly glowing, set upon a wooden dock that stretches just a little into the water. It's not a bright light. No, it's a gentle one. Amber, warm, like a flicker of welcome. You feel a peaceful pull, a sense that this light is meant for you. You walk toward it slowly, each step steady and unrushed. The wood of the dock is smooth beneath your feet, worn and comforting. You reach the lantern. It glows like a heart, like an old friend. You sit beside it, legs folded comfortably, and take in the lake. The night is quiet but alive. You hear the chirp of crickets, the soft hoot of an owl far away. A breeze dances across the water and touches your skin with the coolness of night. You breathe in again, slow and deep, and breathe out. With each breath, you feel heavier in the best possible way. Safe. The lantern glows beside you, steady and unwavering. It's more than just a flame. It's a symbol of something quiet and eternal. A light that has always been there, waiting. You close your eyes and let your imagination drift. You see the lake as it was 100 years ago, 1,000. Still serene with the same moon watching from above. The same stars. The same wind. The lantern, too, feels timeless. Like it belongs to every sleeper who's ever come to this place. And now it belongs to you. You let yourself sink into this moment. There is no past or future here. Only the sound of water. Only the glow of the lantern. Only the breath as it moves softly in and out. A sense of peace wraps around you like a warm blanket. You feel your thoughts slowing, softening. No need to chase them. No need to resist them. They simply fade like mist over the lake. You are held by the stillness. cradled by the night. The lantern glows beside you, calm and unchanging. Somewhere deep inside, a door opens, and on the other side is sleep. Peaceful, easy sleep. Let yourself step through. Let go of the day. Let go of expectation. Let go of effort. You've arrived at the edge of this beautiful lake, beside this small, steady light. Everything is well. Everything is soft. Everything is slow. Let your breath move like the tide, gentle and unhurried. Let your body melt into comfort. Let the story carry you now, even deeper. Imagine the lantern's glow growing faint now, not because it's going out, but because your eyelids are growing heavier. You're slipping into that sweet space between waking and dreaming. You see a boat, small and quiet, drifting toward the dock. It's waiting to carry you across the still lake into the arms of sleep. You step into the boat and lie down on soft cushions. The lantern stays on the dock, keeping watch. The boat drifts slowly. The stars above shimmer like whispers. The moon glides with you. You are floating. Effortless. Weightless. You are safe. You are loved. And you are already dreaming. Just let go now. Let the story fade. Let the silence carry you. You have nowhere to be but here. No task left but to rest. And so you drift, sailing across the calm lake, with the night sky above, and dreams waiting on the other shore. Sleep well, dear one. The lantern will be here whenever you return. I didn't plan on moving to Marrow's Hollow. It wasn't one of those hopeful starts, the kind with fresh paint, carefully labeled boxes, and a heart ready for something new. It was a quiet escape, more retreat than arrival. My lease was up, my job gone and a downsizing I never saw coming, and the city had begun to feel like a weight pressing into my ribs. So when the listing popped up for a tiny attic apartment above a bakery in a town I'd never heard of, I signed the lease with numb fingers and packed my life into the trunk of a car that coughed at every red light. It rained the day I arrived. Not a storm, but that misty kind of drizzle that seems more like a sigh than a downpour. I moved my things up a narrow staircase, brushing crumbs of croissant off the railing, and by the time I collapsed onto the futon that smelled vaguely of lavender and dust, I felt scraped raw. There's a certain ache that comes from too many changes in too short a time. You don't cry exactly, you just exist. Quietly. That night, unable to sleep, I went for a walk. The town was hushed, like it had tucked itself in early. A few porch lights blinked through the fog, and the street lamps glowed like old memories. I wandered aimlessly, unsure what I was even looking for. Something to tether me, maybe. Something to say, "You're still here." Then I saw it. A soft golden glow pooled onto the sidewalk from a narrow storefront halfway down Sycamore Street. Its sign swung gently above the door, the bookstore that never closes. A bit dramatic, I thought, though the lettering had the curling charm of something hand-painted decades ago. The display window was stacked with old hardcovers, their spines cracked and comfortable. A sleepy plant spilled from a teacup beside a stack of poetry, and a cat-shaped bell, bronze and polished smooth at the paws, hung by the doorframe. I pushed the door open. It didn't creak like I expected. It chimed. The cat-shaped bell jingled high and clear, like laughter muffled in snow. I stepped inside, brushing rain off my coat, and was immediately wrapped in the warm, paper-rich scent of stories waiting to be read. The bookstore was dim but welcoming, lit only by soft sconces and a few scattered lanterns that cast shadows like the folds of old letters. No one stood at the counter. No sound but the rain ticking gently on the windows. And yet, one thing caught my eye. A single book placed precisely in the center of the front desk. Its cover was a deep forest green, embossed with gold script. How to Begin Again. I stared at it for a long moment. Something in me fluttered. Curiosity, dread, hope. With hesitant fingers, I opened the cover and froze. The dedication read, "To Kiana, who already has the courage. She just doesn't believe it yet." I blinked, rubbed my eyes, read it again. I hadn't told anyone I was moving here. My phone was off. No one knew my name in Marrow's Hollow. And yet there it was, curled in elegant ink on creamy paper. My name. My throat tightened. I looked around, half expecting someone to jump out and yell surprise or explain the joke. But the shop remained still, wrapped in that same golden hush. I turned the page. The first chapter opened with a woman standing in the rain, heart heavy, hands empty, her life unraveling in quiet ways. Friendships gone cold, a job that once mattered now gone. dreams shelved so long they'd begun to collect dust. The words echoed too close, too sharp. I sat down on the little stool beside the counter and kept reading. Each chapter traced something I hadn't spoken aloud. The feeling of not belonging, the way I avoided mirrors lately, how the silence in my apartment seemed to hum with what-ifs and could-have-beens. But it wasn't bleak. No, the book didn't linger on pain. It acknowledged it, gently. And then it offered moments of light, tiny ones like a coffee left on your porch by a neighbor or a breeze that smells like the sea. Possibilities. I read until the sconces dimmed with the sunrise. I don't remember standing or walking home. I just remember the warmth in my chest, a flicker I hadn't felt in weeks, maybe longer. The kind of warmth that doesn't shout, but says, "You're not broken. You're just in the middle." The next night I returned. I didn't plan to. I told myself I was just going for another walk, but my feet had already memorized the way. The bell above the door jingled again when I entered, twice this time, like a welcome. I stepped inside, expecting to see the book where I'd left it, but it was gone. In its place sat a new one, The Bridge Between Moments. No author name, no publisher's mark. My pulse quickened. I opened the cover. This one didn't start with me. Not exactly. It opened with vignettes, short lyrical pieces about people passing one another on streets, hands almost brushing. A woman humming in her kitchen as she stirs soup, thinking of a friend she hasn't called in years. A boy scribbling music in a notebook, too shy to share it. A postman who whistles only when no one's listening. And in the middle of it all, a girl on a bench, notebook in her lap, watching the world as though she's not sure where she fits in. Her name wasn't Kiana, but it was me. I read about her finding a photograph in the gutter, a picture of two children laughing in the snow. She tucks it into her notebook and wonders about their story. She begins noticing people again, noticing moments. Not the big, life-changing ones, but the ordinary kind that slip past if you're not paying attention. A neighbor dropping her keys and laughing at herself. The hush before a sneeze. A toddler pointing at the moon and whispering, "Look, Mama, it's following us." The girl collects these moments like breadcrumbs, and slowly, quietly, they begin to lead her somewhere, back to herself. I stayed until midnight that time, not reading in a rush, but slowly, deliberately, savoring. When I left, I looked back. The windows were still glowing, and I swear I saw a cattail slip around one of the shelves. But when I opened the door, the bell didn't chime. Only the sound of the rain, soft and steady. The days after that blurred, but the bookstore became my anchor. Each night, a different book waited for me. Not always about me, but always for me. One, a collection of letters never sent, written by people learning how to be brave. Another, a series of essays from someone who never thought they'd be understood until they were. Once it was a book of maps that didn't lead anywhere real, but every trail had a poem tucked in the margin. I followed those inked paths with my finger, wondering if perhaps they did lead somewhere, just not a place you could find on a GPS. I never saw another customer, never met the owner, but the shelves shifted nightly, and a fresh candle always flickered near the reading stool. Once someone left a mug of chamomile tea with a note tucked beneath it. Don't forget to rest between chapters. I took the mug home and returned it the next day. Marrow's hollow began to change around me, or maybe I began to change within it. I started saying hello to the baker downstairs. I took my tea outside in the morning. I carried a small notebook in my bag and jotted things down. Snippets, thoughts, fragments. I smiled more. Not constantly, but more. The ache didn't vanish, but it softened, like it had been acknowledged. I still didn't know who ran the bookstore, but maybe that didn't matter. One morning I found a note tucked inside the bridge between moments, just a small slip of paper tucked between pages 42 and 43. Some stories don't begin at the beginning. Some start when you choose to walk into the light. That night I lit a candle of my own, and I wrote. Not about the past or what I'd lost. I wrote about the bookstore, about the bell that sounded like laughter, and the books that knew me before I knew myself, about the girl in the green coat who found a home in the quietest place, about beginnings that feel like endings, and how sometimes they're the same thing. I don't know what tomorrow's book will be, but tonight, as I stand before the softly glowing windows of the bookstore that never closes, I feel ready to turn the page. I first saw the boy with the fox sketches near the East Fountain in Town Square, just past noon on a Tuesday. He sat cross-legged with a stack of crumpled printer paper in his lap and a chipped red pencil gripped tight in his hand. His tongue poked out as he drew, focused, determined. On the ground beside him, a fox danced in charcoal lines. Not the cartoonish kind either. His foxes had movement, wildness, like they might leap up and run off into the hedges if given the chance. He didn't look up. Not even when I passed again 20 minutes later with my half-melted mocha from Lantern and Loaf. It wasn't until I got home, set my cup on the sill, and opened The Bridge Between Moments again that my breath caught. There he was, page 74. Described not by name, but by detail. A boy who saw stories in silence, who spoke best in lines curved like brushstrokes. His foxes were messengers, some said, carriers of secret wishes too small to speak aloud. I stared at the page until the words blurred. Then I wrote in my notebook, 1. The boy with foxes. Real. Draws in the square near noon. Check back. Check. That was the start of it. The next day, I saw the barista. She wore oversized glasses and had hair the color of rosemary, always tied up like she didn't quite mean to be pretty, but ended up that way anyway. Her name tag read Cleo, and she smiled at everyone, but it never touched her eyes. I'd read about her too. In the book, she was the woman who brewed coffee like it was potion, hoping each cup might wake someone to stay. She handed me my drink that day with a nod, no extra words. But I watched her linger a few seconds too long by the syrup rack. Her gaze flickered to the cafe door like she was waiting, or maybe mourning. I didn't know. I added her to my list. 2. Cleo, lantern and loaf. Mourning something that never quite started. The book shifted each time I opened it, sometimes subtly, sometimes wildly. The margins would grow wider, the font would breathe differently. Pages I remembered would vanish, and new ones appeared like dreams freshly woven. It wasn't always linear. I gave up trying to keep track and started dating my entries instead. On the third night after finding the bridge between moments, I returned to the bookstore. It was still there, still quietly glowing on Sycamore Street. I entered without knocking. The cat-shaped bell above the door jingled like a whisper of silver wind. The air smelled of wild chamomile and paper warmed by sun. No one stood behind the counter. Just a single candle lit in the far corner, flickering like a sigh. And that's when I saw her. A girl, no more than 10 or 11, sat cross-legged on the floor near the back shelf where the poetry volumes lived. She wore a velvet cloak far too big for her, deep green and stitched at the hem with crescent moons. Her fingers traced the cover of a thin book, its title obscured. She looked up. Her eyes were violet, not purple, not blue, but that in-between shade that reminded me of twilight just before stars arrive. "You're the new one," she said. Her voice was soft but sure, like she'd said it before and it always turned out true. "I guess I am," I said. Do you work here?" She tilted her head. "Only when the moon is full." I blinked. "Seriously?" She shrugged. "You're not from Marrow's Hollow. You don't know the old ways yet." She stood, cloak swaying, and walked over. The book in her hands trembled slightly, or maybe that was my own pulse. She passed it to me without speaking. The title shimmered. All the Doors I Nearly Missed. My throat tightened. I didn't know why, but it felt like someone had written it just for me. "What's your name?" I asked. "Maylie," she replied. "You'll see me again when it's time." I opened the book, but the pages were blank. When I looked up, she was gone. Back in my apartment, I laid the blank book on my desk and stared at it under lamplight. I tried writing in it, just a word, "hello," but the ink slid off the page like oil on water. No mark remained. Instead, I returned to the bridge between moments. It now had a new chapter. The Girl in the Cloak of Moons. She visited only on full moons, the threshold nights. She did not speak often, but when she did, her words grew roots. She carried the quiet between pages and offered it to those who had forgotten their own beginnings. I didn't sleep much that night. The next week I started walking with purpose. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation, maybe the next mirror from the book. But my notebook began to fill. 3. Grieving grandfather, Henry, feeds pigeons at Willow Park, reads aloud from a worn book of poems, leaves one page torn each Sunday. Why? 4. Old woman with pearl buttons, always knitting near the riverbank, hums lullabies in Portuguese, not in book yet. Some people from the pages hadn't appeared. Others emerged first, and their stories followed days later. It was like the town and the book were breathing in sync, not always in rhythm, but somehow intertwined. I stopped one afternoon to speak with Henry. He was sitting on his usual bench, a wrinkled copy of Leaves of Grass in his lap. As always, crumbs gathered at his feet where pigeons bobbed like feathered clockwork. "Mind if I sit?" I asked. He looked up, surprised but not unkindly. "Don't see why not, long as you don't scare them off." I smiled and sat, folding my notebook closed. He read a few stanzas out loud. His voice was warm molasses, slow and steady. When he finished, he tore out the page and folded it carefully. "Why do you do that?" I asked gently. He glanced down at the folded paper. "For my wife," he said. "She's been gone 8 years now. I used to read to her every night. Now I read to her ghost. The river carries the words to her, I think." My chest ached. "That's beautiful." "It's lonely," he said, "but love often is." He stood and gave the folded poem a final pat before tucking it into his coat pocket. "Do you believe books can follow you?" I asked on impulse. He paused. Then, "Sometimes I think we don't read books. We remember them. The ones that matter anyway." That night my blank book held a sentence. Just one, faint and silvery as if written in moonlight. "A poem folded in love is never truly forgotten." I cried when I saw it. Not for the sentence itself, but for what it meant. That maybe I wasn't imagining all this. That something, somewhere, was listening. Or perhaps I was finally quiet enough to hear. A few days later, I saw Maylie again. It wasn't a full moon, but the clouds parted just enough to reveal a pale sliver, waxing gibbous, nearly full. I found her in the bookstore once more, curled up with a thick volume titled Ways the World Might Mend. "You came back," I said, sitting cross-legged beside her on the floor. She didn't look up. "I never really leave, not when someone needs the story." I watched her turn a page with reverence. "Is this magic?" I asked. "Or just something else?" Maylie closed the book and finally met my gaze. "It's both. The shop doesn't find everyone, only those who are almost ready. You were already reading your story, you just forgot how to see it." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a slip of folded paper. I opened it. A fox, sketched in red pencil, running through tall grass. Beneath it, in tiny script, some stories begin when you start to notice. I looked up, but Maylie was already walking away, her cloak fluttering like quiet wind. Back home, I pressed the fox sketch into my notebook. I wrote beneath it, 5. Maylie. Appears when skies nearly remember the moon. Speaks truth without explaining it. Gifted me the fox. Then I turned to my blank book again. There were now 3 more lines, written faintly. The woman who brewed hope in coffee, the boy who drew longing in motion, the reader who chose to see. That last one, that was me. And I think, finally, I understood. The book was blank when I first opened it. Its spine creaked like an exhale, like it had been holding something in for far too long. The cover read, "The One Who Listens." I thought maybe it was a journal or a misprint, but when I flipped through the pages, each one was smooth and untouched. No hidden ink, no faint embossing, just silence. And yet, it felt heavier than the others. I sat in the little reading alcove beneath the bay window in the back corner of the store. The cushion still smelled faintly of lavender and old paper, like it had been steeped in the quiet of countless stories. The cat-shaped bell at the door had rung only once that morning, and no one else had come in since. So I listened. Not out of strategy, but out of curiosity, to the ticking of the clock over the register, to the soft flick of Whimsy's tail against the counter where he napped, to the rustling trees outside, gossiping in a breeze that hadn't been forecast. And slowly a line appeared in the book, faint, as if traced in graphite rather than ink. Listening is how the heart remembers it's not alone. I didn't write that, at least not with my hands. I stared at the words, and they stared back, soft and open like an invitation. The page remained still, no further lines forming. I tried speaking aloud. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Nothing happened. But when I stopped trying, when I just let my breath rise and fall and simply listened again, I heard the muffled laughter of 2 teenagers walking past the store, a dog barking a few streets over, the tiny squeak of Whimsy repositioning himself. And another line appeared. Begin by listening to the world, then to yourself. From that moment on, I carried the book with me everywhere. It didn't always respond. It wasn't a magic trick exactly. It was more like a mirror, or maybe a cup. Something that caught what was already there but often overlooked. I started hearing things differently. When the barista at Violet Elm Cafe handed me my drink and mumbled, "Busy morning," I no longer nodded absent-mindedly. I caught the weariness in her voice. I asked how she was, really, and she blinked in surprise, then poured out a quiet confession about her insomnia and the dream she kept having of floating alone in a canoe. When I passed the old man who fed pigeons by the war monument, I noticed how he hummed a lullaby as he scattered breadcrumbs, off-key but full of love. When I asked about it, he told me it was the song his wife used to sing to their daughter before bed, and that somehow the birds seemed to recognize it. He laughed, but his eyes were wet. And when I finally let myself walk to the edge of the park, where the boy sat sketching foxes in his tattered notebook, I sat beside him without speaking. He didn't look up, but eventually he whispered, "Most people talk too loud." "I know," I whispered back. He showed me his sketch, another fox, curled beside a tree. "This one's waiting." "For what?" He shrugged. "Maybe nothing. Maybe someone who listens." That night when I opened The One Who Listens, a full page had written itself in my looping, uneven script. Everyone wants to be heard, even silence. It was a Thursday when I found the letters. I was dusting behind the poetry shelf, humming under my breath, when I nudged a loose board. It shifted just enough to reveal a gap. Tucked inside was a bundle of aged envelopes tied together with a red thread. They looked ancient, or at least forgotten. Some were postmarked, others never sealed. A few had names, some just initials, and one had a fox doodled on the front. My heart caught in my throat. I tugged it free carefully. There was no stamp, no return address, only my name, written in a delicate hand, and beneath it those 5 words, "You're closer than you think." I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by the scent of dust and pine shelves, and unfolded the note inside. "Kiana, if you've found this, then something inside you has begun to shift. You've noticed the patterns, the echoes between pages and people. You've seen the foxes, the boy, the light in the corners others walk past. That's not a coincidence. You are part of this story now. Not just a reader, a listener, a bridge. Don't stop. Some answers aren't loud. They're folded quietly into the edges. M. M? My hands trembled, but not from fear. More like recognition, as if somewhere in the fog of my memory I'd already read this letter before, or dreamed it. I read it again and again, tracing the fox with my thumb. Over the next few days, I returned to the hidden letters. They were stories in their own way. Some were confessions, others were poetry. One was a sketch of a willow tree with a name carved into the bark, E+R still. Another had no words, just pressed wildflowers and a single sentence. We bloomed here once. I didn't know these people, but I felt them. Their voices lingered like fingerprints, soft and warm and full of longing. I started copying parts into The One Who Listens, and when I did, more lines would appear beside them. Responses, reflections, sometimes even small questions. The book was evolving, or maybe I was. One evening, as I sat behind the counter reading a letter about a woman who had left her wedding ring inside the store for someone braver, Maylie appeared again. The bell jingled and I looked up. She stood there with her pale blue coat and hair like silver threads, though she couldn't have been more than 16. "Full moon tonight," she said, stepping in without waiting for a reply. "The store hums differently when it's full." I smiled. "You always come on full moons." "Only when the stories call." She walked straight to the poetry shelf, reached behind it, exactly where I'd found the letters, and pulled out a single red-threaded envelope I'd somehow missed. "This one's not for reading," she said. "Not yet." "How did you—" I trailed off, but she didn't answer. Instead, she held out her hand. I placed the letter into her palm. She didn't open it. Instead, she asked, "Do you want to know who wrote yours?" "Yes," I whispered, before I could talk myself out of it. She nodded toward the window. "He's still drawing. The boy in the park, the foxes. But how? He sees things the way you do, not in straight lines." She smiled, then added, "The drawing on your letter? That was his. He leaves them sometimes when the moment feels right." I blinked, heart pounding. Why would he send one to me? Maylie tilted her head. "Because he heard you, before you knew you were speaking." And then she turned and left, the bell chimed softer than usual, as if it, too, understood not to interrupt the quiet now settling around me. That night I walked to the park. The sky was clear and the moon was full, casting everything in that gentle kind of silver that makes the world feel like a dream you almost remember. He was there, sitting cross-legged beneath the same tree. A lantern sat beside him, flickering. I didn't speak right away. I just sat. He kept drawing, but after a moment he slid the notebook between us. Another fox, this one curled around a book, its tail wrapped around a glowing heart. "You drew the letter," I said quietly. He nodded. "Why?" He picked up his pencil, wrote a sentence beneath the fox, and turned it so I could see. "Because you were listening." We sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. I watched as he drew, line after line flowing like water. I understood then. He didn't speak much, not because he couldn't, but because the world was already speaking to him in 1,000 subtle ways. And he was answering back, with pencil and ink, with symbols and foxes and light. I pulled out the one who listens from my bag and opened it. As we sat together, new lines appeared. When two silences meet, a conversation begins. Not all letters are sent through the post. Sometimes being seen is louder than being told. I let the book rest between us. He looked at it, touched the page gently, then smiled. Not a big one, but the kind that settles in the corners of the eyes and says, "Thank you." Later, back in the store, I added a small note to the growing pile of letters. "To the next person who finds this, don't rush. The story is already here, folded between breaths, hidden in sidewalk chalk, tucked into the spaces between sentences. Listen long enough and you'll hear what you didn't know you were waiting for. I tied it with red thread and tucked it behind the poetry shelf, right where someone listening might someday find it. The glowing book won't open. I've tried everything, gentle coaxing, flipping it upside down, breathing slow as if it might respond to calm. I even whispered to it, my voice barely above silence like it might be voice activated. But the shimmering gold script on the front cover, the door within, won't give way. It hums faintly in my hands, warm but unreadable. Maylie watches me from a few paces away, sitting on the wide armrest of a chair as if it were a perch. There's something always slightly otherworldly about her, like she's been folded into the pages of this place and only occasionally steps out. Some stories require courage to begin, she says quietly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Her words settle like dust in my chest. Courage. I don't know if it's fear holding me back or something deeper, something I'm not ready to name. I place the glowing book back on the pedestal where it first appeared this morning, nestled in a circle of light beneath a crooked sunbeam. It doesn't resist or vanish, just rests there, unread. That's when I notice it. A tiny, almost invisible line of handwriting in the margin of a nearby poetry book. Just a few words, slanted and delicate. Ask about the bell. I frown. Maylie, did you write in this? She shakes her head, a flicker of a smile on her lips. No, but the store does sometimes. I blink at her. The store writes. Only when someone's listening, she says, standing. And you're beginning to listen. That night, the bookstore curls itself differently. I've started to notice it does that, shifting as though it breathes. Sections expand or tighten, shelves tilt just enough to draw attention. Lamps flicker not with malfunction, but with suggestion. Following the note's direction, I find myself back at the counter where it all started. The bell above the door, shaped like a curled cat, hangs still and silent. But when I reach up and touch it, a ripple travels through the air like sound underwater. A moment later, I hear it, faintly from deep within the store. Ding. Not the same note as the front bell. Lower, more resonant. It doesn't come from the entrance. It comes from somewhere inside. I follow it. It leads me to the travel section. I've never paid much attention to this aisle. Who needs travel books when the town itself feels like a half-remembered dream? But here, wedged between a guide to the Amalfi Coast and a battered atlas, I find another margin whisper, this one scrawled on the inside cover of a map. Forgive the storm. I pause. Storms, inside or outside, have always unsettled me. I was 8 the first time thunder shattered the sky right as my parents told me we'd be moving again. Since then, storms have always meant change, endings, loss. Forgive the storm, I repeat aloud. As if in response, the air shifts. The lights in the aisle flicker, not out of menace, but like something holding its breath. Then I see it. A small wooden door in the corner where no door should be. It has no knob, but etched onto it is a fox. The same fox from the letter I found tucked into the shelf last week. The same fox that boy draws in the park. It isn't just a doodle anymore. It's a key. The alcove is hidden behind the false wall. I squeeze through, heart thudding like a hummingbird trapped in my chest. Inside, dust dances in the amber light of a single glass lantern. Shelves line the narrow walls, but they don't hold books. They hold things, strange objects. A compass missing its needle, a seashell with a lock carved into its spiral, a photograph of a woman smiling beside someone half erased. In the center sits a drawer, old, carved with curling vines and a single symbol. The fox. The moment I step closer, the drawer pulses faintly. It's locked, of course. I kneel in front of it, running my fingers over the fox mark. It's warm to the touch, familiar in a way that makes my skin tighten. Inside my chest, something stirs. Not fear, recognition. There's more to this store than shelves and stories. There always has been. The next day I come early, too early. The sun's barely broken the treetops of Merrow's Hollow, and the lamplight in the bookstore is soft and sleepy. I find Maylie already there. She's sitting in the children's corner, reading aloud to no one, though the way she reads makes you think someone might be listening anyway. I found something, I tell her. A drawer. It's locked. The fox symbol was on it. She closes her book slowly and looks up. Did you hear anything? I nod. A bell, but not the front one. Her eyes soften and she walks over, silent as shadow. Then it's beginning. What is? Maylie doesn't answer directly. She leads me instead to the back wall where framed photographs usually hang. A rotating gallery of author portraits and old literary events. One is missing. In its place is a blank canvas. As I stare at it, words begin to fade in, slow as breath. When you're ready to open what's locked, be still. The key is not a thing. It's a moment. I stare. What does that mean? Maylie tilts her head. You'll know it when it comes. Courage isn't always loud. The whispers grow bolder after that. Margins hold more messages, some scrawled in cursive, others printed in blocky letters like a child's handwriting. Some I understand, others I don't. They appear in cookbooks, journals, even the spine of a dusty thesaurus. Look left. She still waits in the rain. The lost thing isn't the drawer. Each one leads me a little closer, not to the drawer, but to myself. One evening I sit by the window with a novel I've read 3 times. I'm not reading, though. I'm thinking about storms, about silence, about the way I never stayed anywhere long enough to be known. Not since the day I lost my brother and the house grew too quiet to call home. That's when I see it, etched faintly into the window frame itself. You are not the storm. I touch the words. They're not just ink, they're carved. And something inside me finally cracks open, not in pain, but in clarity. The key isn't a thing, it's a moment, This moment, I run. The drawer opens without resistance. No key, just presence, just readiness. Inside there's only a few items. A single envelope sealed with red wax and marked with the fox symbol. A tiny brass bell, not unlike the one above the store door. And a pressed flower, lavender, perfectly preserved. I open the envelope last. The handwriting inside is familiar. It's mine. But I don't remember writing it. Kiana, you will forget this for a time. That's all right. We forget when we are afraid. But you found your way here again. That means you're ready. You're closer than you think. Not everything needs fixing. Some things just want to be heard, including you. Ring the bell when you're ready. The door will appear. Love, you. I stare at the letter. The bookstore doesn't just know me. Some part of me has been leaving breadcrumbs, reaching across time and forgetting, guiding myself forward. I wonder how many versions of me have walked these shelves, how many whispers I've left behind. The bell is cool in my hand. It fits perfectly, like I was always meant to carry it. I ring it. The sound is quiet, not even sharp. A soft chime, more breath than noise. But the effect is immediate. The walls ripple. A door appears in the corner of the alcove where there was none before. It's small, child-sized, like it leads into a forgotten cupboard, but it pulses gently with light. I kneel, take a breath, open it. Inside is a room filled with shelves. Not books, but journals. Hundreds of them, each with different dates and names on their spines. Some are dusty. Some are glowing faintly, like they've just been opened. I find one with my name, Kiana Elise Mora, and a date that matches today. I open it. It's blank. But the moment I sit, the pen resting beside it rolls toward me. I lift it, and the words begin. I write for hours, not just thoughts, conversations, memories, people I met in the store, things I forgot I felt, things I didn't know I remembered. Some entries appear before I even think them, like the journal knows where I'm going. You are not the storm. The drawer opens when you do. You left light behind you, even when you thought you didn't. I don't cry, not yet. But I feel something deeper, the shape of something long hidden, finally traced with my own hand. Maylee appears in the doorway after what might be hours or minutes. Time is strange here. The story's begun, she says gently. I nod. I think it was always waiting. She smiles, eyes bright. So were you. As I leave the alcove, the journal stays behind on its shelf, humming faintly with quiet gold light. But I don't feel like I'm leaving something behind. I feel like I've taken it with me, inside. That night, when I pass the glowing book, the door within, it opens without resistance. The first page holds a single line. Welcome back. I didn't notice her at first. The woman was quiet as dusk itself. Tall, robed in something that shimmered like the last blue of evening, and impossibly still. She stood in the aisle between poetry and forgotten journals, one hand resting on the spine of a cracked leather book. Her presence was like a breath the store had been holding. Or maybe I had been holding mine, waiting for this. "You've come far, Kiana," she said, her voice carrying like the hush before rain. I blinked. "You know my name." The woman smiled, soft and knowing. "Names have always belonged to stories. I only keep them safe until the owner is ready." Are you the owner of the bookstore?" I asked, still unsure whether I should feel awe or simply fold into whatever strange magic this night held. "I am its binder," she replied, "its keeper. Some call me the story binder." The story binder. The name felt right, like the kind of thing that had always existed in the folds of some ancient tale. She moved through the shelves like mist, and I followed her, wordless. As she walked, books leaned ever so slightly toward her, as if drawn by gravity or affection. "The bookstore appears when it's needed," she explained as we turned a corner where the air smelled faintly of cedar and ink. "Not everyone can see it, and fewer still are brave enough to step inside." I touched the pendant at my neck, one of the small foxes I'd begun noticing since this journey started. "The fox. It's part of this, isn't it?" She nodded. "The fox is my symbol, a quiet guide for those who've forgotten their own magic." "Is that what I've done?" I asked. "Forgotten mine?" She paused beside a glass case I hadn't noticed before. Inside, resting like something sacred, was the glowing book that had refused to open. I stepped closer. The lock still shimmered across its cover like a living thread of silver. "This book," the story binder said, "holds the story you've yet to write." "But it won't open," I murmured. "I've tried everything." Her eyes, gray like foggy morning light, met mine. "Because it's not written, not yet. This story doesn't begin with ink, it begins with choice." I swallowed hard. "You mean I have to live it?" "Every page," she said. "It unfolds as you do. That's why the margins whispered, why the letters found you. You are a thread through many stories, Kiana, but only you can choose to be their weaver." I stood there, caught between wonder and fear. My story wasn't something to read. It was something to live. And yet, part of me wondered, what if I wasn't ready? The story binder reached into her cloak and pulled out a small brass key. It glinted like starlight. "You may keep this," she said, placing it gently in my palm. "It's not for the book. It's for the next door you're afraid to open." That night, I dreamed of foxes running through ink. They danced along tree branches that turned into sentences, and every leaf whispered a word I hadn't yet spoken aloud. I woke before dawn with the key still clutched in my hand. The days that followed blurred in the golden light. The teaching opportunity I'd mentioned offhand to Maylie finally came through. A guest lecture series at the town's small college. Creative writing, storytelling, and narrative empathy. It was the kind of thing I might have turned down months ago, afraid to stand in front of others. But something had shifted. Or maybe I had. "I'll only be gone a few days," I told the store the morning I left, my fingers brushing the worn handle of its green door. "Save me a story or two?" The bell above the door chimed softly in reply, like a cat purring beneath a warm hand. The lecture went well. More than well. I stood in a circle of students who looked at me not like an imposter, but like someone who belonged. I spoke about listening, about stories that waited in silence, about foxes that slipped between margins and truths that arrived slowly, like morning fog lifting. But when I returned, only 4 days later, the corner of Sycamore and Bellflower was just a corner. The bookstore was gone. My breath caught. I stood beneath the lamppost that used to cast its soft glow on the cat-shaped bell. But now there was nothing but a closed tailor shop with a dusty display of thread and thimbles. The air didn't smell like paper or rain or hope. It just smelled like asphalt and disappointment. I circled the block, twice, no hidden entrances, no flicker of candlelight behind second-story windows, no sign of Maylie, no fox. It was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my apartment, every book spine looking like a closed mouth. I opened my notebook, the one where I'd recorded dreams, snippets of overheard conversations, and the trail of strange clues that had once led me to the drawer with the fox etched into it. I flipped through the pages, searching for something I'd missed, a sign, a secret code, anything. But the pages remained stubbornly silent. By morning, my eyes burned and my chest ached in that particular way grief does. Not loud, but steady, like water wearing down stone. Had I made the wrong choice? Had I broken something sacred by leaving? My phone buzzed, a message from the college. They wanted to offer me a part-time position for the fall. A chance to build something real, predictable, safe. I didn't answer. Instead, I went walking. The town was unusually quiet, or maybe I was just too loud inside to hear it properly. As I passed the park bench where the old man used to feed pigeons, I paused. He wasn't there, but a folded newspaper lay on the seat. On it, scrawled in the margin, was a note in familiar ink. "You haven't lost it. Look left." My heart stuttered. I turned slowly. Across the street stood a small alleyway I'd never noticed before, a thin strip of shadow wedged between a florist's and a cafe. I crossed without thinking, drawn like a needle to thread. The alley smelled of honeysuckle and dust. At the end stood a door. It was wooden, with a fox carved at its center, and the outline of a lock I recognized. The brass key was already warm in my pocket. Hands shaking, I fit it into the lock. It clicked. The door swung open, and there it was, the bookstore. But not exactly as I remembered. It was smaller somehow, cozier. The ceiling was lower, and the shelves seemed to lean in with affection. The air smelled like cinnamon and old paper. And sitting on the counter, exactly where I'd first found How to Begin Again, was the locked book. But this time, it was unlocked. I stepped forward, afraid to breathe. I opened the cover. The pages were no longer blank. The first few chapters were there, reflections of everything I'd been through since that first night. Each moment lovingly described, like someone had been watching and recording. Not just the facts, but the feeling of each one. The heartbeats, the silences, the choice to return. And then, a blank page. Waiting. I looked up and found the story binder in the doorway behind the counter, her twilight robe dusted with gold thread now. She smiled. You returned. I thought I'd lost it, I whispered. Some doors vanish when left alone, she said gently. But stories that are truly yours, they always find a way back. I nodded, blinking tears away. What now? She gestured to the book. Now you write. I stayed in the store until dusk, the light turning amber through the high windows. I didn't write with a pen. I didn't need to. I sat in the alcove near the fox drawer and simply remembered, letting the feelings rise and shape the words onto the page as if by their own will. When I finally stood to leave, I felt something under my palm. Another letter. This one was addressed to the one who chose to stay. Inside, just 4 words. The next story waits. It's been 3 weeks since then. The bookstore doesn't appear every night. Sometimes it's the green door again. Sometimes the fox leads me to a pop-up in the back of the old library, or to a park bench where someone's reading aloud to the wind. But it always finds me when I'm listening. I took the college job, part-time. Enough to teach and guide, but not so much that I stop being guided myself. And each night I write 1 page. Some are memories, some are imaginings, some are moments I haven't lived yet but feel brave enough to dream toward. The fox still appears now and then, usually when I'm doubting myself. A flicker of red at the corner of my vision, a tail disappearing around the bend. Maylee visits sometimes, usually with a question I hadn't thought to ask myself. And the story binder? She only comes when I forget that I too can bind stories, that I'm not just living one, I'm writing it. 1 unwritten page at a time. There's a kind of dream that doesn't fade when the morning comes. It lingers, honeyed and soft at the edges, the way your mother's voice echoes through an old lullaby, or the smell of cinnamon clings to the sleeves of a winter sweater long after the season is gone. That's how it felt when I opened my eyes, bathed in that quiet warmth, like something forgotten had come home to me. I had been dreaming of our family's old bookstore, not the way it looked in photos, with the chipped blue sign and slightly crooked shelves. But the way it felt, the hush of pages turning, the scuff of my father's slippers on hardwood, my mother's laugh echoing from the stockroom. I saw myself at 7, curled in the corner beside the register, scribbling wildly into a spiral notebook with the stub of a purple crayon. I had written my very first story there, about a girl and a fox who lived between pages and only came to life when someone truly believed in them. I hadn't thought about that story in years, or the way I used to believe in magic like it was my birthright. The sun was barely up, casting a quiet glow over Merrow's Hollow, but I didn't even pause to grab my coat. Something inside me pulsed with certainty. I ran, barefoot and breathless, to the alley behind the cobbler's shop. And there it was, the bookstore, not quite as I had left it, but somehow more real. The light from inside was warm and amber soft, spilling across the cobblestones like a welcome home. The cat-shaped bell above the door gleamed faintly, as if it too had been waiting for me. I stepped closer, heart thudding like a door about to open. When I pushed on the handle, it gave easily. No resistance, no hesitation, as though the store had been expecting me. The scent of old paper and cedar hit me like memory. Everything was exactly, and not at all, the same. The books were different, yet familiar. The layout had shifted subtly, revealing corners I hadn't noticed before. And behind the counter sat the glowing book, the one that had refused to open for me. Until now. I approached it slowly, like you might approach a deer in a clearing, half afraid it would vanish if you moved too quickly. My fingers trembled as I reached out. This time the cover yielded beneath my hand, as soft as a sigh. The pages inside were written in a hand I recognized as my own, though not always the neat, edited version. Some were hurried, some crossed out, others rewritten 3 times. There were parts I barely remembered living, and others I had long buried. The conversation with the boy who drew foxes, the letter I wrote to myself and never sent, the day I first walked past this alley and almost didn't turn in, but the story wasn't finished, not by a long stretch. The last page was blank, not ominous, not threatening, just open, waiting. I sat on the wooden stool behind the counter, the book cradled in my lap like something sacred. I didn't need to ask what it meant. I understood now. This place was never a trap, never a test. It wasn't here to tell me who I had to become. It was a mirror, a map, a lantern held up in the dark so I could find the courage to write my own way forward. And the fox, the one who had appeared in the pages and on the drawer and in the child's sketchbook, wasn't just a symbol. She was a reminder of the quiet magic that waits in the wings of every moment, every decision, every untold chapter. The sign above the door flickered gently. The old letters shimmered, and then, as if exhaling a long-held breath, changed. The bookstore that opens when you're ready. A slow smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. I tucked the book beneath the counter. For the first time, I didn't feel like a visitor here. I stood, brushing dust from my skirt. The space behind the counter was cluttered, scattered with pens and notes and tiny slips of paper with half-formed thoughts. It felt lived in, ready. Just as I turned toward the shelves, the bell jingled. Not the wind, not memory. A real sound. Someone had stepped inside. She was maybe 18, maybe younger. Rain-damp curls clung to her cheeks, and her eyes held that same look I'd worn on my first visit. Tentative, guarded, hopeful in spite of herself. I met her gaze and offered a soft smile. "Hi," I said gently. She hesitated in the doorway. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't sure if it was real. I almost didn't come in." "That's how it works sometimes," I replied. She looked around, awe tugging at the edges of her face. "This place, it feels like it's breathing." "It is," I said, heart full and warm, in its own way. She stepped forward slowly, drawn to a shelf labeled for the quietly brave. Her fingers traced the spine of a book that shimmered faintly, as though it recognized her touch. I didn't hover. I let her wander. Instead, I made tea, 2 mugs, just in case, and watched the light shift across the floorboards. The store felt more alive than ever, as though welcoming her too. When she finally approached the counter again, she cradled a thin volume in her hands. "I think this one is mine, but it has no title." I nodded, unsurprised. "Maybe it's waiting for you to name it." She laughed nervously. "That's a lot of pressure." "You don't have to decide today," I said. "Sometimes the title comes when you're not looking." She bit her lip, then glanced around. Are you the owner?" I paused. The question echoed gently inside me. Once I would have said no, would have claimed I was just a passerby, just visiting, but I wasn't anymore. "Yes," I said. "I suppose I am." Her smile bloomed like a morning sky. "That's kind of amazing." I poured her a cup of tea and slid it across the counter. "You're welcome to stay a while. No rush." She nodded, settling onto the worn velvet chair near the window. The book opened easily in her lap, and as she read, her shoulders softened. I watched her, this girl who reminded me so much of myself, and felt something in me settle, like a puzzle piece finally falling into place. Because this was never about fixing what was broken. It was about remembering what had always been whole. Later, after she left with her book hugged tight to her chest, I stayed behind the counter, thumbing through my own pages. I wrote a few new lines, just thoughts, fragments, but they felt honest, true. Outside, the town moved quietly. Evening approached with golden grace. I lit a small lamp in the corner, then another near the back. I restocked a few shelves. dusted the frame of the secret alcove. The drawer with the fox symbol had remained closed, but now I sensed it wasn't locked, just patient. And when I opened it, I found a pen. Just a pen, simple, ink dark, waiting. I held it between my fingers and let the moment wash over me. Not every story begins with thunder. Some begin with a bookstore, a bell, a quiet decision to step inside. I opened my book once more. On the blank page I wrote, "This is where it begins again." And then I smiled, stepped to the front door, and turned the sign to "Open." Because maybe the magic wasn't in the books. Maybe it was in the choosing. And I was ready. And that ends tonight's meditation. You're welcome to stay for a bit longer if you like. Have a beautiful night until next time.